Bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
Well, this is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. First, though, our top stories tonight. Israel's military appears to be conducting operations inside southern Lebanon, with heavy shelling reported and a ground assault understood to be imminent. A new report has found there is a reasonable likelihood another post office IT system created shortfalls for sub-postmasters before the ongoing Horizon scandal. And the BBC has apologised to the actress Amanda Abbington over complaints of bullying on Strictly Come Dancing, although allegations of physical aggression by professional dancer Giovanni Panici were not upheld. Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the journalist and author Ian Dunt and the broadcaster Esther Kreiku. Welcome and great to see both of you. So lots to discuss tonight. Let's see what's on the front pages, shall we? Starting with the Financial Times, which quotes American sources suggesting Israel's ground invasion of Lebanon is imminent. Daily Mail with the headline, "World holds its breath as Israel is set to invade Lebanon." The Guardian goes a step further, saying the incursion has already begun. The Telegraph carries words of warning from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has told Iran there's nowhere we cannot reach. The Eye reports that a second post office IT system called Capture may have produced accounting errors that led to wrongful convictions before the Horizon scandal. The Times hears that migrants will continue to be housed in hotels for up to 3 years as the government failed to anticipate the extent of the asylum backlog. The Metro Pictures actress Amanda Abbington, who described herself today as vindicated after a BBC investigation partially upheld her complaint that she was mistreated while appearing on Strictly Come Dancing. It's also the main story for The Mirror, Strictly the verdict, their headline, and the Daily Express 2 BBC apology to Amanda in Strictly bullying row. Well, the Star cites someone they call their fifth favourite boffin in the world to prove that the universe from the Matrix movies is real and that the Bible proves it. So, moving swiftly on, I think, probably, don't you? Scan the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, and you can then listen to our guests or check out the front pages and listen to our guests here. So let's go to Ian and Esther. Welcome to both of you. A critical time once again in Lebanon. You know, the newspapers holding their breath, as the Daily Mail says, because it's hard for them to go to print until they know what happens. But, you know, this is yet another seismic moment as we approach nearly a year since the, Hamas attack on southern Israel.
This is pretty much the exact thing that we've been desperately praying would not take place for about a year now, which is an expansion of war in the Middle East. And it was really the Biden administration's policy from the beginning to try and constrain and prevent this. You may remember when all of this really kicked off last October. One of the first things the US did was send a big ship over there to go like, everyone just stay away from what is going on here. We are not going to allow this to contaminate more broadly in the region. They've been working on that very hard. I think at the moment that strategy is clearly in tatters. It is in Netanyahu's interest to keep war going as long as possible. As soon as war stops, he will himself, I think, lose power and then face the 3 criminal charges that are being held against him. So on that basis, you see this attack. And it is an attack that it's really very hard when you read military strategists talking about what's going on here. The question is, well, what is the aim exactly? Is the aim to eradicate Hezbollah the way that you said and failed to eradicate Hamas? Because you're never going to be able to do that.
Well, the aim, surely, is to eradicate the ring of fire around Israel. And including in that would be all the proxies of Iran, Yemen, we saw attacks there yesterday, Hamas, which we've seen on the ground, which has become a proxy of Iran, even though it's Sunni, and Hezbollah in Lebanon. So that's becoming the aim, isn't it?
But that's not a credible proposal.
Why is it not? The commanders look like they've been wiped out.
You can decapitate Hezbollah. Hezbollah has around 100,000 soldiers. It has around 150,000 rockets and missiles. It has them across the state of Lebanon. It is deeply embedded into Lebanese society, into its politics, into its civil infrastructure. And the suggestion that they would be able to do that, I think, would be extremely unconvincing.
The argument that the Israelis are making is they want to eradicate Hezbollah's physical infrastructure around southern Lebanon and northern Israel, where they've been firing rockets and have displaced about 100,000 Israelis since they began attacking on October 8th, actually, ironically. And the language that the Israelis are using is quite interesting. They're using limited ground operations. So they want to paint a picture that it's not as apocalyptic as we feel. But of course, everyone is holding their breath, because with actions like this, there's always the potential for escalation. You know, we were never told, and we still don't have any awareness of when the conflict in Gaza is going to end, and this could follow the same route. Yes, there's speculation about how this could personally benefit Netanyahu, which I do think is valid, but I also think the idea of actually being a physical deterrent to Iran and its proxies is also at play here. You know, Hezbollah has been firing rockets into Israel, and this is the first real sort of forceful response. The question is, you know, who actually has any sway here? Because the Americans were informed, right? America that funds Israel and supplies them with weapons to the tune of billions of dollars a year. They were just informed about the fact that Israel wanted to carry out this incursion into Lebanon. So there is concern of a seeming lack of control and what happens next. And I think those are very valid concerns.
Yeah. So obviously tonight, Secretary Blinken and Joe Biden have both said we have made it clear we need a diplomatic solution. And yet the US is sending, you mentioned the big ship they sent at the beginning, several additional Air Force fighter jet squadrons to the Middle East. We learned tonight beefing up what has already been an increased military presence there as the region teeters on the brink of all-out war. And the Foreign Office here, amidst that concern about what is happening, not least in Beirut, where we've seen big explosions tonight, the UK has chartered a commercial flight to help meet the needs of any additional British citizens and their spouses and children who need to get out of the country. The vulnerable will be prioritised. You need to pre-register with the FCDO, and the flight is due to take out on Wednesday. So if you're watching from the region, Wednesday is this commercial flight. They're suggesting that any further flights will depend on the security situation, which, as we know, is difficult. We've seen Israel tell people in 3 distinct districts of southern Lebanon to move themselves because of airstrikes. We've seen the situation of outgoing artillery from North Israel towards specific areas in southern Lebanon. Southern Lebanon, clearly a Hezbollah stronghold. Yep. And their aim, of course, is to get them past the Litani River. This is the UN resolution after the last war in 2006, 1701, which has not been upheld. So there's a buffer zone. Yep. So is the intention a buffer zone? The trouble with the buffer zone idea, well, it's manifold. So, firstly, is that just creating a buffer zone would not prevent Hezbollah from being able to fire into Israel. Well, yes. I mean, it has the capacity to do that from various other positions. It's not just the quantity of its weapons, it's the quality of its weapons. And those weapons have not disappeared simply because its leadership has been decapitated. Another problem is once you establish your buffer zone, what do you do then? Do you keep people on the ground? I mean, once you actually get ground troops going into Lebanon, as we saw in 2006, we can get very difficult situations, and actually in the 80s as well, both for Israel and for Hezbollah. But nevertheless, you could see body bags going back to Israel. So again, you start asking yourself, what exactly is the intention of what you're trying to achieve? Then, by the way, there is the media element, which seems kind of odd to talk about, but is quite important.
Well, yes, there's been a complete embargo on any sort of information. You know, ministers have been basically told to remain silent about this. Israeli journalists have been told not to report about anything or spread misinformation in case it risks the lives of Israeli or IDF troops. So, you know, this has been well in the works. But the question is, when they phrase it as a limited ground operation, there's so many questions around that. How long does this last? What does a limited ground operation look like? I mean, we're literally seeing rockets being fired. That doesn't look like a limited ground operation. There's reports that tanks have already rolled into parts of southern Lebanon. You know, there is real concern that this doesn't just end there. And I think this idea that they're trying to create this buffer zone and then return the 100,000, roughly, Israeli citizens that have been displaced in northern Israel, the question is, can they be returned? You know, how long will this buffer zone be? Will it last? Well, we saw pictures there of Beirut. First of all, there's huge blasts a short time ago. Northern Israel as well, that outgoing artillery. Your classic military strategy of airstrikes first, then heavy artillery to soften up the targets if you're planning an incursion. Let's take a look at the papers, how they're covering it. Financial Times talking about the imminence of this, you know, suggesting that US officials were informed. Also, they broke this news, and apparently, you know, there are reports that Israel's Security Cabinet
are deeply, upset that, in effect, the Americans leaked this.
Yes.
You lose the element of surprise, don't you? And again, Daily Telegraph, Netanyahu warns Iran, you're in our sides. This is the proud Persians, trying to get to the people of Iran over the theocracy, which has been in charge for decades. Whether that works is, again, same with Lebanon. Our war is not with you, it's with Hezbollah. So whether this is another strategy that works from Israel, who knows?
Well, I mean, let's talk about the way that operates, right? I mean, there was a lot of resentment towards Hezbollah and Lebanon, and has been for a very long time, not least due to their own incompetence, let alone any of their moral failings. Now, that's been going...
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast. Starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people. Welcome to the Politics Hub.
A police force has apologised. If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent. My most memorable story was, and still is, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann.
Please, please do not hurt her. Please give our little girl back.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news.
For detectives, the first 48 hours after a murder are crucial in the search for clues. The public expects them to find Jill Dando's killer soon. The British detectives are planning to meet forensic experts, academics, and even witch doctors.
I remember the grimmest case, the Soham murders of schoolgirls Holly and Jessica. I felt I can't undo what's happened, but I can help explain it.
Ian Huntley was arrested and charged within a fortnight of the murders.
I've never murdered anyone. I've never raped anyone. What am I in jail for?
The parole board has to decide if Bronson needs to be kept locked up for the safety of the public. My biggest challenge was to persuade a jailed diamond thief to answer my letters. Martin Brunt, Sky News, at the Old Bailey.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me now, Ian Dunt and Esther Craikhill. Welcome back to both of you. Let's go to domestic matters, shall we? Not least, the Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case, rumours of which had abounded, has announced he will step down at the end of the year.
Yes, he's obviously the highest paid civil servant, so this was quite big news. There was speculation that his clashes with
Sue Gray
was behind this, but it's unfortunate that he actually had to clarify that was for medical reasons. You know, he's had, according to him, neurological issues for the last 18 months, and that this is obviously driven by his medical issues. But there are questions already about who's going to replace him, because this is effectively one of the most important positions there is. I do think, though, that the kind of speculation about how this is going to affect Keir Starmer and his government is I find quite disheartening, because this is someone who's stepping down for medical reasons. I hate the sort of political plotting around it. But it is big news, and it is obviously off the back of this scandal in Keir Starmer's government of the freebies and the leak inquiries and all of that.
And beyond that, for Simon Case, his WhatsApp messages
Exactly.
during COVID,
Yes,
which came out
exactly.
during the COVID inquiry,
Yes.
whether he had or had not a fiery relationship
potential
with Sue
clashes
Gray,
with that,
the clashes with Sue Gray. But is it sort of a sign of another imploding part of Downing Street, do you think? Which, I mean, the rumour factory is going nuts, isn't it?
Well, no, I mean, so we've known for a really long time that he was going to step down for medical reasons. OK, so this is just him confirming it officially.
Exactly,
so, I mean, we knew that even from before the election, really. There's nothing surprising about that. It's also unsurprising. We don't know the machinations behind the scenes of this. It's also unsurprising that, Keir Starmer would want him gone from that position, given the way that, he's associated with Boris Johnson administration very heavily over Partygate, as you just mentioned. And also his record was pretty poor. You may remember those comments he made about private members' clubs, male-only private members' clubs. You've got to join them to reform them from the inside and blah, blah, blah. So at this point, he was not held in tremendously high esteem in the civil service. He is a civil servant. He is not part of the party political appointments. He is literally the most senior civil servant. And usually it's people of really very, very high quality in that position. You're talking, the Gus O'Donnells, etc. And these are people that are referred to as kind of like top drawer civil servant people. I think probably most fair appraisals would say that he did not, satisfy that definition. And most people in the civil service, as well as Downing Street, will be quite happy that there's going to be a change of personnel.
Very quickly, we don't have much time to talk about the Tories and the beauty pageant that's taking place in there.
Minus the beauty.
But anyway, so the point is, stop the boats. We were wrong to say it. Who said that?
James Cleverly.
James Cleverly.
Yes, who's finding interesting ways to make names for himself. You shouldn't have said something that you couldn't uphold, which is, obvious. The grass is green, as usual. But it's interesting because in the context of sort of the Tory leadership race heating up and just a month away from us finding out who's going to lead the sinking ship that is the Tories, he's coming out and saying that the Rishi Sunak shouldn't have made promises that he couldn't keep. And, the question is, what does that say about him? What would he have done differently?
OK, we'll talk more. Lots more to say about that, obviously, a little bit later on. Esther, Ian, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you. See you in the 11. All right, now here is the weather. And the remnants of today's rain will largely fade away tomorrow, leaving it drier and calmer for the rest of the week. Fairly mild start then. Lincolnshire, though, East Anglia, Eastern Midlands will be wet and windy. A few showers near windward coasts. Eastern England will have a rather dull morning with outbreaks of increasingly light and patchy rain, while central England will cloud over. Most other places will be dry with sunny spells. Few light showers still around. Well, of course, keeping an eye on the breaking news from Lebanon. The latest on the developing situation. Israel preparing for an imminent ground operation in southern Lebanon. Blasts heard in Beirut. Back in a moment.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle. Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News. The full story first. Free wherever you get your